Hi, everybody. This week is a real good one. We're going to get into some very specific populations of different language learning students and then some real specific methods of ways that we can work with and support language learning students in the classroom. So let's just jump right in and take a look. There are 3 assignments this week, 1 Wednesday and 2 for Sunday. So the first one might surprise you a little bit, and this is about cochlear implants and the deaf community. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that's all about. For those of you who are not familiar with the deaf community, and when I say that and I write it, it's deaf with a capital D. If you're not familiar with that, it's a really fascinating subculture that we have. And I want you to take a little bit of time to read up on it here, about deaf culture and the deaf community, and just kind of, keep an open mind. What does that mean? Who are these people? The deaf community is not exactly the same as someone who is deaf with a lowercase d, meaning that they can't hear. So, for example, I have a friend who is an instructor. She used to teach at Fresno City College. She actually teaches at Reedley now, so she's no longer at City. But she does not have a hearing impairment. Her hearing is perfectly fine. However, she was born into a deaf family. Both of her parents are deaf. They were born deaf, and there are six kids altogether in her family, and 4 out of the 6 children were born deaf. She was one of the children that was not born deaf, her and one other of her siblings. Her first language that she learned is ASL, and she considers that to be her first native language. Her second language is English. So she did learn to read and write from a pretty early age, but she didn't learn how to speak English until she went to kindergarten at age, 4.5, 5. Very similar to many people who are in immigrant communities who are speaking one language in the home, and then they send their kids to school for preschool or kindergarten, and then they begin to learn English and they become bilingual. So she's bilingual in ASL and English. And it's really interesting to listen to her talk. And I used to, when she was at City, I used to have her come be a guest speaker in my linguistics classes. And it was really fascinating to come have her speak to the class. Her pronunciation is almost perfect, although sometimes you can hear a little bit of a difference of pronunciation of some of the sounds that she makes. It's like you can't quite put a finger on it. It's not really like anything that you've heard before. She definitely does not sound like a deaf person trying to pronounce things, and she doesn't sound like she has a foreign accent at all. What you can notice though when you're talking to her is that she has a hard time coming up with vocabulary sometimes when she's talking. Like she doesn't know the words for things, and she'll try to think of something, and then you have to remind her, or she'll ask, what is the word for that? And then you have to remind her about a word. It's really fascinating. And there are just all kinds of little small differences that you would never think of. So go ahead and take a look at this. And again, if you're not familiar with the deaf community, this is going to be a real eye-opener for you. It is really possible that you will have somewhere in your career a child in one of your classes with a hearing impairment. And so it's really good. It's a really good idea to be aware of these things. they may or may not be a part of the deaf community, so this may or may need to be on your radar, but it's just a really fascinating culture regardless. Okay, so then I have a summary. It's kind of a compare and contrast on two different methods or just ways that we're looking at how we approach teaching English as a second language, two different approaches, kind of coming at it from two different sides. And in actuality, probably most of the time, most teachers in most classrooms use a combination of both. But in order to understand this, I really want you to take a look at both of these and kind of analyze them and give me your analysis. Which one do you think is best, basically? Okay, and then our last assignment is the discussion for this week, and this is always a great discussion. So this is about something called Generation 1.5 students, and I know for a fact that we have Generation 1.5 students in our class because they make up a pretty large percentage of the students at Fresno City College. So of course, we're gonna have them in our class. It's not just a person who's bilingual. There's a little bit more nuance than that. So read up on it and see if you recognize yourself. Basically, this is the person who, when you're talking to them and you're having a conversation with the person, for a native speaker, you might not even notice or realize that they're bilingual, that they even speak another language because their English is perfect. The problem comes in when they're going to write something or read something. That's where they have difficulties. And so they really have a lot of problems because as they're going through the education system, they can slip through the cracks. They develop a lot of skills to kind of sneak by, and the teachers may not even realize that they're having problems with the language because they're so fluent, they're so fluently culturally American, and so the teachers may just think that it's not their problem, that language isn't their problem, there's some other thing that is their problem. Maybe they're not putting out the right amount of effort, they're being lazy, or maybe they even have a learning disorder or disability, or there's something else going on and they just don't get the right kind of support or resources. And so this is really something that is eye-opening to a lot of students. You might recognize yourself, you might recognize your siblings, people in your family or friends that you've known. So take a look at this, and the questions here that I'm asking you are just to write a quick definition of it, and then any experience that you've had. And most of you have probably had some experience, but if you haven't, what do you imagine working with these kids is going to be like? And then for your replies, based on what you read, and I have this list of tips up here, based on what you've read, what are some real specific things? You don't have to go through the whole list of tips, but based on the person's post, what are some real specific things that the teacher could do or could have done to help that person or support that person's language development in the classroom? Okay, so this is going to be a really, really cool discussion, and I can't wait to see what you have, what kind of insight that you're going to bring, because I know that many of you have a lot of experience in that, so it's going to be really cool. Okay, let me know if you have any questions or anything comes up. I'll be around all weekend, all next week, and we should be on track to get started with the English Conversation Cafe next the next week. So what would that be? Week 8. So I'll let you know as soon as I find out what's going on there. Stay tuned and let me know if you have any problems with anything. I'll talk to you later. All right. Bye bye.